She just wanted to visit her daughter. That was it. No press, no entourage, no flashing cameras. Just a 68-year-old woman in a soft beige cardigan and pearl earrings, boarding a first-class seat like any other passenger. Her name? Evelyn Carter. What the flight crew didn't know, what the security guards didn't know, was that she was the mother of one of the most powerful black women in the business world. And what was about to happen on that plane would send shockwaves from Wall Street to boardrooms across the globe. Because Evelyn wasn't just anybody. She was the mother of Aurora Carter, the CEO of a billion-dollar investment firm, Carter Equity Holdings, a firm with a $5 billion stake in the very airline she was being thrown off of. Scene: inside the plane, first-class cabin. Narrator: Evelyn walked calmly down the aisle, holding her boarding pass and handbag. Her smile was gentle and her walk steady. She had done this many times before. But this time, the flight attendants were watching. Not with professionalism, not with kindness, but suspicion. She sat in seat 2A, a window seat, first class, reserved in her name, paid for. And then it started. A young blonde attendant walked over with a forced smile. "Ma'am, this section is for our first-class passengers only." Evelyn looked up, confused. "I know, dear. This is my seat." The attendant tilted her head. "Can I see your boarding pass?" Evelyn handed it over without hesitation. The attendant scanned it, eyes narrowing. Then she smiled again, but this time it was sharp. "I'll be right back." Moments later, a second attendant arrived. Then a third. Then airport security. All white. All surrounding her seat like she'd committed a crime. Evelyn, still calm, asked what the issue was. One guard leaned in and said, "We've had a report of a passenger attempting to occupy a premium seat without proper clearance." Evelyn blinked. "That's not true. My daughter booked this seat. It's paid for." But they didn't listen. They didn't check the system. They didn't care. Instead, in full view of the other passengers, many of whom began filming, they escorted Evelyn off the plane. No apology. No explanation. Just humiliation. Scene shift. Security office in the terminal. Narrator: she sat there for 45 minutes. Alone. Waiting. Phone clutched in her hand. Finally, one of the airline supervisors walked in, holding her ticket. "Ma'am, I apologize. It looks like there was a mix-up." "A mix-up?" "No. What happened wasn't a clerical error. It was profiling. It was judgment. It was racism, plain and simple." And Evelyn? She made one phone call. Just one. To her daughter. Scene shift. Inside a skyscraper office in New York City. Narrator: across the country. Inside a glass tower office in Manhattan. Aurora Carter was mid-meeting with her board when her personal phone buzzed. She rarely took calls during work hours, but when she saw her mother's name, she stepped out. The moment she answered and heard the tremble in Evelyn's voice, everything changed. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't panic. She simply said, "Mom, I got this." Then she hung up, turned back to the boardroom, and said 4 words that would change everything. Pull the funding. All of it. Before she became one of the most powerful CEOs in the country, Aurora Carter was just a little girl growing up in a 2-bedroom apartment on the south side of Atlanta. Raised by a single mother, Evelyn Carter, an elementary school teacher who worked 2 jobs, Aurora's life was humble, but never hopeless. Evelyn instilled 3 unshakable values in her daughter. Walk with dignity. Never let them see you break. And always remember who you are. Aurora grew up watching her mother battle racism in the school system, injustice at the bank, and disrespect to the grocery store. But Evelyn never shouted, never begged. She fought quietly, brilliantly, like a storm wrapped in silk. And Aurora never forgot. Aurora got a full scholarship to Howard University, where she majored in finance and minored in African American studies. She graduated at the top of her class, summa cum laude, and immediately caught the eye of Wall Street recruiters. But once she stepped into the financial world, she learned quickly. She wasn't just fighting markets. She was fighting perception. Her name, her skin, her presence. She'd walk into boardrooms and be mistaken for the assistant, ignored in meetings, talked over. But Aurora? She didn't raise her voice. She raised her net worth. By the time she was 35, Aurora had launched her own firm, Carter Equity Holdings. Started in a shared office space with one intern and a borrowed printer, she focused on diversity-based investment portfolios. She knew the big players wouldn't take her seriously at first, so she did what she'd always done: let the numbers speak. By year 3, her firm had returned over 340% growth. By year 5, Carter Equity held minority or full stakes in 2 international hotel chains, a luxury fashion conglomerate for tech startups, and yes, multiple commercial airlines, including the one her mother had just been dragged off of. Her portfolio value? Over $14.2 billion, with $5 billion parked directly in the airline industry alone. They didn't know who they humiliated that day, but they were about to find out. The airline's executive team scrambled once they got the call. Not from Evelyn, not even from Aurora, but from a partner bank overseeing some of their largest liquidity lines. We've just been informed that Carter Equity is liquidating its $5 billion position in your holding group. Effective immediately. Panic, confusion, boardroom chaos. Who the hell is Carter Equity? One VP barked. A younger executive, one who knew, spoke up cautiously. She's one of our largest investors. Aurora Carter. She owns more of this airline than most people in this building. Silence. And then came the kicker. She's also the woman whose mother you kicked off a plane this morning. While the airline scrambled, Aurora was already 10 steps ahead. She wasn't issuing statements. She wasn't tweeting. She was transferring, withdrawing, redirecting assets. She called up her legal team. I want every investment contract reviewed for exit clauses. Pull out wherever legally possible. And I want to issue a press release before close of market. Her CFO asked quietly, "Are you sure?" Aurora didn't blink. They embarrassed my mother in front of strangers. Let's see how they handle being embarrassed in front of shareholders. By morning, it was everywhere. Breaking banners on national news. CEO pulls $5 billion from major airline after mother was removed from flight. Social media exploded. Hashtag boycott the wings. Hashtag justice for Evelyn. Hashtag Aurora Carter was right. Celebrities started chiming in. Civil rights organizations began issuing statements. Even other investors were reevaluating their stake in the airline. Everyone wanted answers, but no one could ignore the heart of the story. A black woman, a mother, humiliated without cause, and the billionaire daughter who refused to let it slide. Evelyn Carter never wanted to be famous. She was a teacher, a mother, and a quiet woman of faith. But the media trucks lined up outside her suburban home within hours. So she did what she always did. She faced the storm gracefully. Standing in her front yard, wrapped in a soft cream shawl, she gave a single, powerful statement. I didn't ask for this spotlight. I was treated unfairly, yes. But I don't want revenge. I want respect for myself and for everyone who looks like me. Then she added, if I weren't Aurora Carter's mother, how many more of us would keep being treated like this and no one would care? And just like that, Evelyn went from victim to voice. The airline CEO, Martin Briggs, stood behind a podium 2 days later, looking shaken. Gone was the smug corporate polish. In its place, visible panic. We offer our deepest apologies to Mrs. Evelyn Carter and her family, he began. But the apology felt forced. He called it an unfortunate misunderstanding. He blamed a miscommunication between crew and gate staff. He claimed the removal was not racially motivated, but the public wasn't buying it because the video didn't lie. A camera phone clip had surfaced, showing Evelyn seated quietly while being escorted off, repeating over and over, "But this is my seat. I paid for this seat." The image hit hard. A soft-spoken black elder treated like a criminal in front of first-class passengers and airline staff. The airline tried to clean it up, but Aurora wasn't done yet. Aurora Carter appeared on national television that night. Poised, immaculate, business black suit. No emotion, just resolve. When asked if she'd reconsider her investment pullback, she answered plainly, "No, you don't get to disrespect the woman who raised me and keep my money." What happened wasn't just about my mother. It's about how black women are treated when nobody's watching. Unfortunately for them, this time, someone was. She leaned forward slightly, looking right into the camera. I don't invest in systems that dehumanize my people. And just like that, Aurora Carter became a symbol, not just of black excellence, but of black power with teeth. By Friday, the airline stock had dropped 11%. Analysts panicked. Investors scrambled. Other stakeholders started asking questions. And competing airlines? They seized the moment. One rival even offered Evelyn Carter free lifetime first-class flights, releasing a statement that read, "Every mother deserves dignity, especially one who raised a CEO like that." The public loved it. The airline that made the mistake, they were still reeling. Inside the corporate offices, the tension was unbearable. The board demanded answers from CEO Briggs. How could this happen? Why was protocol ignored? Do you understand what she meant when she said she was Evelyn Carter? But no one had answers, because the truth hurt too much. They didn't think a quiet black woman in a cardigan could possibly belong in first class. They didn't check. They didn't ask. They just removed her. Now it was costing them billions. The phone lines at Carter Equity Holdings didn't stop ringing for days. Brand endorsements, TV appearances, keynote speech requests, even other major airlines offering Aurora equity swaps and board seats just to appear aligned with her. Every corporation wanted a piece of her image now. Her influence had become currency. But Aurora wasn't chasing fame. She wasn't moved by camera flashes or trending hashtags. She was watching, strategizing. Because this wasn't just a PR moment, it was a chance to build something bigger. Back home, Evelyn sat in her armchair, watching the news. Every station had her face on it, but she wasn't smiling, because she knew something the rest of the world didn't. Aurora had always been more than a billionaire. She was a builder, a fighter, and now, an architect of systemic change. Evelyn turned off the TV, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Let them chase your name, baby, but you chase the mission." 2 days later, Aurora shocked the business world. She publicly declined all major sponsorship and branding deals that had flooded in since the incident. No interviews with luxury magazines. No Super Bowl ad slots. No face of the movement marketing ploys. Instead, she held a simple press conference. Wearing a modest gray pantsuit and standing beside her mother, she said, "This moment isn't for profit. It's for progress. I don't want to be your brand ambassador. I want to be your reminder, your accountability." Then she paused and dropped the real news. Aurora announced the launch of the Carter Foundation for Dignity in Travel, a multi-million-dollar nonprofit dedicated to fighting racial profiling in the airline and travel industries, funding legal representation for victims of discriminatory treatment, providing training grants for black pilots, flight attendants, and aviation professionals, creating a nationwide passenger equity score system that would grade airlines on how they treat black and brown travelers. The crowd was stunned, not because she could do it, but because she chose to. She could have made money. She chose to make impact. Black communities across the nation responded with celebration and pride. Mothers and daughters in matching cardigans posted pictures online with the hashtag #WeAreEvelyn. Flight attendants of color began anonymously sharing their own stories. Former airline employees came forward with tales of internal discrimination and unjust removals of passengers. Aurora's act had sparked a movement, not one rooted in anger, but in expectation. A new standard had been set. Meanwhile, the airline was scrambling to repair its image. They launched new diversity campaigns. They suspended several employees involved in Evelyn's removal. They offered public apologies and promised sweeping policy reforms. But it was too late. The world had seen them for what they were: reactive, not proactive. Apologetic, only when it hurt their wallet. Aurora never spoke their name again in public, because as far as she was concerned, they were already erased from her portfolio and her mind. A month later, Evelyn boarded another plane. Same airport. Same route, first class. But this time, things were different. When she approached the gate, the staff greeted her by name. When she stepped on board, every flight attendant stood at attention. And when she sat in seat 2A, the captain himself came out of the cockpit to say, "Ms. Carter, on behalf of this crew, we'd like to thank you for flying with us. Your dignity reshaped our entire industry." Evelyn smiled softly, then turned to the woman seated beside her and said, "My daughter did that." 6 months after that now infamous flight, the Carter Foundation for Dignity in Travel wasn't just making headlines, it was changing lives. Across the country, airports began introducing bias awareness training designed by Aurora's team. Dozens of cases came forward, some from years ago, passengers who were removed, harassed, or shamed because they didn't look the part. The foundation offered them pro bono legal support, and several airlines were quietly settling discrimination lawsuits under public pressure. Aurora's original goal was to shine a light, but now she was building a road. One afternoon, Evelyn Carter stood proudly inside a bustling flight academy just outside of Chicago. The students? Mostly young black women and men in their early 20s, future pilots, engineers, aviation techs. The academy had a new name above the entrance: the Evelyn Carter School for Equity in Aviation. She watched a 21-year-old woman climb into a cockpit simulator with tears in her eyes. "I never thought I'd see someone like me doing this," the student said. Evelyn smiled, the same gentle smile she'd worn that day on the plane before it all began. "You can do more than see it," she replied. "Now you get to fly it." But change wasn't just happening at the grassroots. Word of the Carter Foundation's work reached Capitol Hill. Soon, lawmakers were proposing a new federal bill, the Passenger Fairness and Accountability Act, PFAA. The bill would create an FAA-monitored passenger treatment report card for all commercial airlines, mandate public reporting of all passenger removals by race, gender, and age, penalize airlines that showed consistent patterns of racial profiling. And guess who was invited to testify before the House Subcommittee on Transportation? Aurora Carter herself. Wearing a sharp navy suit and sitting behind the witness table, Aurora faced members of Congress with poise and precision. She opened her testimony not with anger, but with a question. How many people need to be disrespected before one finally gets heard? She laid out the data, the patterns, the video clips, the lives affected, the money lost. Then she turned to the heart of it. The people being profiled aren't problems. They're professionals, teachers, veterans, mothers, and they deserve to fly in dignity, not fear. For 10 minutes, the room was silent. Not because they weren't listening, but because they were realizing she wasn't asking for change. She was demanding it. Meanwhile, the airline at the center of the original scandal was now under federal review. The FAA had opened an audit into their internal removal procedures. Several executives resigned quietly. The head of in-flight training was replaced, and the company issued a statement pledging $100 million toward racial bias reform. But the damage had been done. Their name was forever attached to the story of the woman they tried to erase. On the anniversary of the incident, Aurora sat down with a legendary black journalist for a televised interview. When asked if she would ever invest in airlines again, Aurora gave a sharp smile. "Maybe, but this time, I won't just own a stake in the company. I'll sit on the board, and the first policy I implement, any employee who disrespects a passenger based on race gets grounded for good." The clip went viral. Millions of views in hours. Because people weren't just watching a CEO, they were watching a revolution in real time. A year had passed since the day Evelyn Carter was removed from that flight. Now, she stood on the grand stage of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., flanked by government leaders, veterans, and civil rights icons. The president had personally invited her. The occasion? She was being awarded the Presidential Medal of Civilian Honor for her dignity, courage, and the national impact sparked by her experience. As the medal was placed around her neck, the entire auditorium rose to its feet, not just for her, but for what she had come to represent. Grace under fire, strength in silence, and the kind of woman the world often tries to overlook until she rises. Scene: Carter Foundation reaches global stage. Narrator: Meanwhile, the Carter Foundation had gone international. Airports in Canada, the UK, and even South Africa adopted its passenger equity score system. Aurora didn't stop at policy. She created a new aviation tech startup, FlyRight. It used AI and passenger feedback to monitor in-flight experiences and issue real-time alerts to prevent discriminatory incidents before they occurred. Within months, Flyrite was valued at $800 million. Airlines once afraid of her were now begging to partner with her. But Aurora didn't care about validation. She cared about visibility for people who had none. One quiet evening, Evelyn sat by the window of her home, journal open. She'd been keeping notes through everything, memories, thoughts, moments that mattered. She wrote, "They tried to strip me of dignity that day. But what they didn't know was I'd already passed mine down to my daughter. And she used it to build something bigger than both of us." She closed the journal and whispered, "Thank you, Lord." She was listening all along. Weeks later, Aurora invited Evelyn to a private unveiling. It was a brand new airport terminal under renovation, sleek, modern, state-of-the-art. A huge banner hung across the wall. "Coming soon, the Aurora Carter Terminal for Dignity in Travel." Evelyn stood in awe. "You named it after me?" Aurora nodded. "You built it, Mama. I just put your name on the door." And then Evelyn wept. Not from pain, not from rage, but from deep, full-circle pride. Months later, Aurora stood on a stage in Geneva at the Global Leadership Summit. She addressed world leaders, CEOs, and influencers. Don't wait for tragedy to start treating people with respect. Don't wait for a lawsuit to change your training. And don't underestimate the power of one woman with a story. She raised her hand toward a photo projected behind her. Her mother on that plane, the moment captured forever. That woman wasn't just a passenger. She was the whole flight plan. The crowd erupted in applause. Because by now, the world knew Aurora wasn't a moment. She was a movement. 1 year and 4 months later, Evelyn and Aurora boarded a plane together for the first time since it all began. This time, they didn't sit in first class. They sat in economy, by choice. 2 seats side by side. And when the flight attendant came by, she didn't hesitate. Ms. Carter, welcome aboard. Thank you for everything you've done." As the plane rose into the sky, Evelyn turned to her daughter. "You think we changed anything?" Aurora looked out the window, then smiled. "No, Mama, we changed everything. Like my video and subscribe my channel for more daily videos."